Hey, in today's video, I wanted to talk about how you can drive culture changes within your company. There's going to be two main drivers to do culture changes within your company. One is going to be bottoms up, so the teams that are in the bottom of the company, not in the bottom, but the teams that usually work in the company are the ones that are going to be driving the change and that are going to spread it among the organization. So it's a change that comes from the bottom and goes up. And the other way of doing a cultural change or organizational change is from the top down, something that is going to come from the executive team or a management team and is going to spread across the organization from that top all the way to all the teams. So let's go through the pros and cons of both approaches and which one you should take and in which cases one works better than in the other. So let's go through the pros for the bottoms up approach. The first one is that this is very engaging for the teams themselves. So the employees in the company, they are going to be very engaged because this is something that you are, in a way, giving trust for them to drive change within the organization. This is something that is very good. And there is that empowerment of the team members thinking that they can change the ways of working. The second one is that this is potentially going to bring very innovative ideas. This, if you think about the experts that are working in your teams, it's not going to happen with all the team members, but those experts are going to be able to bring those new innovative ideas of ways of working that you had not tried in the past, and they are going to help you change and produce better outputs and outcomes for your customers. And this is something that might go completely unnoticed if you do a top-down approach. The third one is that this is a very sustainable way of changing a culture or doing a change of process change management in your company, because the people that usually are the ones that are going to have to suffer or take the bulk of that change are the ones that are driving the change. This is a very empowering feeling for them. It is going to help them to be more engaged with this change. And this is in reality an organic change within the company. So since the people that are driving the change, most likely they have bought into that change, this change is most likely going to be a long-term change within the company. The cons of the bottoms-up approach is that if you think about coordinating these kind of changes, it might be difficult to coordinate, especially in a company with many, many different teams. It might be difficult to spread that new culture, that new change or change management within the company or within that team to other teams in the company. It might be very easy to do it in one team and maybe the teams that are surrounding them, but then when it comes to other teams, it might be difficult to scale up. The second con is very related to the first one, is that there might be a resistance to change. It might be that certain teams are very comfortable to work in a certain way of working. Just imagine engineering or R&D working in Agile. If you try to implement this change with an organic growth from the bottoms up into other teams like sales or marketing, there might be some resistance in that. It's not going to work always. Of course, in some cases, they are going to be very happy to join that change, but it's not going to be always the case. And I would say that in most of the cases, you're going to find some kind of resistance, especially for the bigger companies. The third one is that a bottoms-up approach might be very time-consuming because it's an organic change. It's not a change that it's kind of I don't want to say forced, but that has to be adopted by the whole company. That means that it has to organically spread throughout the company. So it might take quite much more time to actually be implemented. On the other hand, I don't think that taking more time is always a bad thing. Usually learning takes time. If you do this change gradually and slowly, it might be easier that actually the teams that are adopting it, they are adopting it for the long term. If you try to do a change very fast, that not always works very well. Now let's go through the top-down approach. The top-down approach, as I said earlier, is the one that basically an executive team or a management team is going to decide that we are going to change the culture, we are going to do a change of processes, and we are going to implement it in the whole company. It might be that it's spread out over a time period that is not done in one go, because usually that doesn't work at all, as I just said a moment ago. But it's going to be decided by the management and is going to be spread and kind of enforced to a certain degree to the rest of the company. So let's go first with the pros. Obviously, the first one is that there is some more likelihood to be an alignment with the strategy of the company. So if this has been planned properly and it has been defined with a clear vision and strategy on mind, and from there you bring your changes and your cultural changes into the company or changes in processes, if you have those goals there, it's easier to align your vision and strategy with your cultural changes, process changes that are going to be required to implement that strategy into your company. The second pro is that it might be more efficient, given that it's something that comes from a management team or from an executive team. The decision is taken faster, and actually the implementation of it is probably going to take less time. The third pro is that you are most likely going to be more consistent. You're going to try to establish a one culture within the company that is going to help keep the teams working in an alignment. At least that's the goal. The cons of a top-down approach, you probably can imagine then. The first one is going to be resistance and pushback. Even if you're trying to establish a one culture, even if you try to align it with your strategy, teams might not agree. They might be very comfortable on the ways of working. They might be very efficient on the way that they are working. And maybe the changes that you are proposing are going to change that, and they are not going to allow them to either be so efficient or maybe not even be so comfortable. That's something that people push back against changes. This is something that you will have to pay attention to, how you can get a buy-in. The second one is something that kind of I discussed already in the bottoms-up approach, is that in the bottoms-up you promote innovation. In this one, most likely you are not promoting innovation. The fact that you are already deciding what the changes are going to be, you are already kind of taking the decisions from the experts away from them. So if you have very expert teams in your company and very expert people in processes, design thinking, agile, lean startup, other types of lean methodologies, you are preventing those people from bringing their knowledge forward. You're preventing them from innovating. Preventing your company from innovating, usually not a great idea. The third one is that these changes that you are promoting, they might be disconnected from reality. It depends a lot on the management teams, on the executive teams. Some of them, they have a much closer relationship with the teams and they might have a good understanding of what the reality of the company is. Some other executive teams are going to be completely detached from the reality of their teams. If that's the case, especially in the second one, most likely what they are proposing, as ideal as it may be, it might be completely impossible to implement. So what do I think about this? I think that there are different situations when both approaches can work. I think that I like the idea of a bottoms-up approach. I think that is great when you have people and teams that are so committed that they are looking forward on how to improve the ways of working, how to improve efficiencies, how to have a better culture within the company. I think this can lead into really successful changes from within the company and changes that also can spread then to other teams. The problem is that if you have this bottoms-up approach and if you have other teams that are not willing to change, then you are going to end up with basically two cultures, two ways of doing things. And that's always going to be a very big problem. This can even be exacerbated by maybe a management team either not wanting to have anything to do with this kind of conflict or taking just one side of the company culture and ignoring the other one. That is going to end up in very many problems within the company because basically you are creating a company with two different cultures and that's going to crash or that's going to clash at some point, and that's not a good thing. And even if you have very driven individuals, the problem is that when they are not able to do those changes and they don't get the support from management to do those changes, most likely those good individuals, because they're good, they're going to find another place to go. So you're going to lose them. That is very likely. The changes from the top down have been in an executive team. I have to say that they are sometimes very difficult to implement unless you really, really involve the different teams in that planning. If you involve the teams in that planning, then you can get the buy-in because then you are empowering them to take part on those changes. If you just try to do the push of a change and of a better way of doing things and a better culture, if you are not able to get the buy-in from the rest of the company, most likely those changes are not going to go anywhere. They're going to be maybe half-baked and not going to be able to do them properly. So what is in my opinion, the best approach? I think that the best approach is a combination of both. And it's maybe not a combination of a top-down change with the buy-in from the bottom, and neither is a bottoms-up change with the buy-in from the top. It's actually a combination of both changes coming from the top and the bottom. And both of them, both the executive teams or the management teams and the actual teams that do the development, the teams that do marketing and whatnot, that they can have that dialogue, that changes can come from whenever within the organization. This is something that is welcome, something that is respected, and something that is encouraged, at least to a certain degree. You don't want to be changing everything all the time because that kind of can lead to chaos as well. But you want to allow people to be able to test and to try new ideas. And whenever they stick, whenever something good comes in, that this is changed, that this is shown to the rest of the organization. And if it's something that works, then management can help and actually helping it to adopt it and moving it forward to the rest of the organization. As well, of course, management is going to have some changes that they want to drive, and this makes sense. And not saying that management should not try to do any changes, but they might not be able to, as I was saying earlier, innovation is something that maybe the management team doesn't have the expertise in all the different areas, and they need those individuals to be able to promote those changes. But there might be other changes that are more strategic that the management team wants to implement. Again, here, I would say that you have to try to find those individuals in the teams or those teams in the company that can help you getting that buy-in from the company, from the other teams, for all the teams basically in the company. You will start usually with a small amount of them and then try to expand from there. So just think about it. Whenever you want to do a change within your company, try to see what is the best approach for you. Try to see what is the best approach for your teams, for you as a company, and for the teams that are part of the organization. So whenever you want to change your processes, you want to change your culture in your team, doing just a bottoms-up approach or doing just a tops-down approach, most likely is going to have some problems of expanding or scaling up at some point. The better approach is that if you have a company where the management and the teams are aligned in understanding that changes can come from different people, changes can be implemented by different people, and there has to be the dialogue. Unfortunately, this is not the reality of all the companies, and many times this is not the understanding that many companies have. But you can always think to be more proactive. But if you are either a team member or where you are also an executive, think about what I just mentioned in this video and think how you could find those peers within the company that you could work with in bringing this kind of changes to the company, to the processes, to the culture that you would like to change. You will be able to find some people, whether if you are in a team member and you want to find somebody in a management team or the other way around, that is going to help you start to establish that dialogue and potentially finding those channels that can help building those bridges that potentially are going to be able to define and bring those changes in the company. If you enjoyed this type of video, please give it a like. It helps YouTube to actually spread this video to other people that might be interested in it. I will see you in the next one. And remember, stay safe.